It is exactly 12:35 a.m. on Wednesday, October 8, 2025. You are standing on Dogwood Lane in Somerset, Kentucky, and the air is just thick with
Oh.
this cool, low 50s mist.
Yeah, that really heavy, suffocating kind of humidity, 100% cloud cover.
Exactly. The kind of static, damp night where the streetlights just bleed into the fog, right?
Mm.
And the contrast of what is happening in this quiet neighborhood is just a total sensory nightmare.
Because on one side of the street, you have sheer panic.
Right. In a driveway, Danielle Roarke is on her knees. She is screaming, frantically applying pressure to her husband Adam's multiple gunshot wounds, just desperately trying to save his life on the wet concrete.
And then literally across the street, the horror is how calm it is.
Yeah, a man is just calmly standing outside his own house in the dark. He has a phone to his ear, and he is telling a 911 dispatcher in this completely flat, emotionless voice, "Yeah, I just wanted to call and say I just shot Adam Roarke."
You absolutely have to stick around until the end of this investigation to hear the unbelievable resolution to this nightmare.
We are Mike and Abby, and welcome to Wild Crime Podcasts. We are officially done with boring, slow-burn true crime. We're tearing into the most baffling cases on Earth, untangling the lies and dropping you right in the middle of the madness.
Whether you are on a long drive, crushing a workout, or just feeling a little bored, we are here to walk you through the mystery and make your next hour incredibly thrilling.
So our mission for this thorough analysis of the source material is, well, it's critical. We are pulling directly from local Pulaski County reporting, historical weather archives, obituaries, and a comprehensive forensic psychological profile.
Because we have to figure out how this totally normal, quiet Kentucky neighborhood became the site of a high-tech, completely delusional execution.
Right. I've got the cold, hard forensics and the psychological profiling, and we are going to tear this whole timeline apart.
Yeah.
Because the escalation here is terrifyingly fast.
It really is. The contrast of that opening scene is what makes this case so deeply disturbing. You have a wife fighting a losing battle against catastrophic trauma, and the architect of that trauma is just standing in the mist.
Not running, not panicking at all.
No, just making a phone call like he's reporting a fender bender. It's chilling.
So to understand how that exact moment happened, we really need to look at the timeline. It is just after 12:35 a.m. when the Pulaski County Sheriff's deputies arrive. Specifically, Detective Ryan Jones and Detective Branson Patterson.
And they secure the area immediately, right?
Right. They find Adam bleeding out in his own driveway, and then Somerset and Pulaski County EMS rush in, and they are attempting all these advanced life-saving techniques right there on the scene.
But I mean, the sheer volume of trauma was just too much.
Yeah, it was insurmountable. Adam Roarke is officially pronounced dead at the scene by the coroner at exactly 1 a.m.
25 minutes.
25 minutes. From the arrival of law enforcement to the official pronouncement, an entire family's universe is permanently destroyed.
And the ballistics at the crime scene, they tell a very specific, awful story about the intent here. Right, because the weapon used was a handgun. But the shooter, this 40-year-old guy, James Gleason, he didn't just fire a single warning shot, you know?
No, he didn't shoot to wound. He completely emptied the magazine into Adam.
Which is just, I mean, why so much violence? Emptying an entire magazine is a massive amount of aggression.
It is, and that forces us to look at a crucial forensic concept here, which is overkill. Gleason wasn't just neutralizing a perceived threat in his mind. He was engaging in what profilers call symbolic annihilation.
Symbolic annihilation.
Yeah, when a shooter fires until the weapon is literally clicking empty, they are almost always driven by a deeply flawed, totally paranoid logic.
Right, they aren't thinking logically anymore.
Exactly. In his twisted mind, he wasn't stopping a neighbor. He was convinced he was physically destroying a transmitter.
And that is where the psychological profiling of this guy gets so incredibly frustrating. Because if you try to frame Gleason's actions through the lens of logic, you get absolute nowhere.
Right, there is no tactical brilliance here at all.
None. Gleason possessed zero heroic traits, zero genius traits. This was just pure destructive hubris from a man whose cognitive processing was fundamentally broken.
Totally broken.
We have to view his actions through the lens of a fatal psychological detachment. He wasn't thinking like a guy defending his home. He was operating on this pathetic, delusional level where human beings are just stripped of their humanity.
Yeah, he reduced a human being to a machine.
Yeah.
And that reduction perfectly illustrates the clinical concept of affective flattening.
Which was completely on display that night.
Completely. For anyone who might be unfamiliar with that clinical term, affective flattening is basically when a person's emotional expressions are entirely muted.
Like a blank wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't show anger, they don't show sadness, and they don't even show that massive adrenaline-fueled panic that usually follows a violent act. They just act like a blank slate.
Which is so unsettling to witness.
It's terrifying. And it is a textbook symptom of profound psychiatric illness,
Mm.
specifically things like schizophrenia and severe long-term delusional disorders.
And that flattening is precisely why he didn't run away.
Right.
Because a criminal of sound mind, or even someone who commits a crime of passion, they experience a massive crash of adrenaline. It triggers that fight or flight response.
Yeah, they either flee the scene as fast as they can, or they collapse in this hysterical regret.
But Gleason just stood outside his house, in the dark, and just waited for the police to arrive.
Because in his twisted, internally consistent logic, he actually felt a sense of righteous relief.
He genuinely thought he had just neutralized a sophisticated technological threat.
He honestly believed the police were going to show up, assess the driveway,
Oh,
and basically thank him.
which is just wild to think about. If you're watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. Would you have noticed these red flags of a neighbor standing silently in the dark mist, completely devoid of emotion after emptying a weapon?
It's one of the most chilling aspects of suburban living, honestly.
Yeah, we are surrounded by people all the time, but we are completely isolated by the architecture of our driveways and our fences.
You really never know what is happening inside the house across the street. But that physical evidence in the driveway alone is wild. But it absolutely pales in comparison to the massive 5-year lie they found when they listened to his police interview.
The narrative Gleason offered is what takes this from a tragic neighborhood dispute into a terrifying psychological labyrinth.
Yeah, and that brings us back to the actual 911 call. He called the cops on himself, right at the exact same time Danielle was screaming for help and calling 911 to save Adam.
Just a horrific split screen of reality.
It really is. And Gleason tells his dispatcher, you know, I've been tortured for 5 years now.
5 years.
5 years. He claims that Adam Roarke was using direct energy weapons against him, DDWs.
Okay, I have to stop you there because we need to break down exactly what a direct energy weapon actually is.
Please do.
Because the absurdity of this claim is central to the whole tragedy. In the real world, directed energy weapons, DWs, they are highly experimental, highly classified military tech.
Right, like Star Wars stuff.
Exactly. We are talking about massive systems developed by huge defense contractors, high-energy lasers used to shoot down drones, or these massive microwave-emitting crowd control vehicles.
Things that cost tens of millions of dollars.
Right. The idea that a 39-year-old father in Somerset, Kentucky, who was selling cars for a living, had somehow secretly acquired and weaponized military-grade acoustic or microwave weaponry.
To torture the guy across the street.
Yes. It is completely detached from any semblance of reality.
Completely detached. And Detective Ryan Jones actually testified later that Gleason provided zero explanation or evidence of what he believed these weapons even were.
Nothing. No fake schematics or anything?
Zero. He had no schematics, no intercepted signals, no strange wires he found, nothing. But to understand how Gleason's brain manufactured this entire reality out of thin air, we have to dissect the psychology of the targeted individual subculture.
Oh, man. The TI community.
Yeah. It is a massive, incredibly toxic internet phenomenon, and it preys on people who are already suffering from underlying mental health issues or substance-induced paranoia.
It is essentially this massive digital echo chamber. People
Yeah.
suffering from severe paranoia just get together online and reinforce each other's delusions.
Right, and the core belief of this targeted individual subculture is this concept of gangstalking.
Gangstalking, right.
Yeah, it's the idea that large coordinated groups of people, often involving government agencies, local police, and even their own neighbors or family members, are engaged in this massive covert operation to surveil and harass them.
And a huge component of that gangstalking delusion is the belief in V2K.
Voice-to-skull technology.
Exactly. Members of this community are just utterly convinced that clandestine forces are beaming microwaves directly into their heads.
Which sounds insane to a healthy brain.
Completely. But to them, this technology supposedly allows the stalkers to transmit voices, induce debilitating headaches, cause their ears to ring, or even create involuntary muscle twitches.
And you have to think of the TI subculture almost like an autoimmune disease of the mind.
That is a great way to put it.
Right, because just as the body's immune system gets confused and attacks its own healthy cells, the brain of someone in this subculture takes normal, mundane bodily sensations and attacks its own reality.
So if Gleason had a tension headache from staring at a screen too long,
Or his ears were ringing from normal tinnitus.
or his muscles cramped up from poor diet or distress, he didn't view it as a biological failure or just getting older.
No, he externalized it, the externalization of the internal. It is a fascinating but really terrifying psychological defense mechanism.
He took his own mundane physical issues and built a completely closed logic loop around them.
He had to project the blame outward.
Hmm.
I mean, it requires a narcissism of epic proportions to avoid accepting that your own body or your own brain is flawed.
Right, rather than admit he's sick, he decides a shadowy cabal is after him.
Or, in this case, the friendly guy living right across Dogwood Lane. He convinced himself Adam must be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and risking federal prison just to covertly give him a headache.
It's the ultimate main character syndrome, just wrapped in a paranoid delusion.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he projected that delusion directly onto Adam Roarke. Which brings up probably the most baffling part of the entire investigation. We have this massive timeline anomaly.
The 5-year blind spot.
Exactly. From 2020 to 2025, Gleason claimed he was being relentlessly tortured. 5 years of invisible, high-tech warfare.
But nobody knew.
Nobody. Detective Jones testified that Gleason never provided any prior evidence to law enforcement during that entire half-decade. He never filed a single police report against Adam Roarke.
Not one.
Not one. He didn't seek out protective orders. He just sat in his house across the street and festered in this silent escalation.
We'll get to the psychological fallout of that silence in a second, but first, you have to hear about the absolute perfection of the life he destroyed to silence the voices in his head.
We really do have to talk about who Adam Kelly Roarke was. Because the contrast between his real life and Gleason's delusion is what makes this so profoundly heartbreaking.
It really highlights the tragedy.
Adam was born on February 25, 1986. He was a local guy through and through, raised in the White Lily community, and he was deeply connected to both the Roarke and Glover families, which are these extensive, well-known networks in Pulaski County.
And to everyone in that massive circle of relatives and friends, he was known simply as the favorite cousin.
Which is such a specific and universally understood title, right?
Totally. Every large family has that one relative who basically serves as the emotional gravity of the whole group.
Yeah, the guy who lights up the room. The one you actually look forward to seeing at awkward family reunions or holiday gatherings.
Because you know his energy is just going to elevate the entire event.
That was Adam. He was deeply rooted in his faith and his community. Going to places like Wesley's Chapel and Piney Grove, he actually met the love of his life, Danielle, at Pennyrail back in 2012.
And they got married on December 10, 2013, right?
They did. And they proceeded to build this incredibly beautiful, vibrant life together. They were raising 3 kids, Carter, Amory, and Breckle.
And his community investment extended way beyond his immediate family, too.
Oh, absolutely. He was a 2004 graduate of Pulaski County High School. And he wasn't just a student there, he was a star soccer player.
He'd been playing since he was a little kid, right?
Yeah, kicking a ball since he could walk. He was known for scoring hat tricks, just totally thrilling to watch on the field. And the thing is, he took that same competitive, joyful energy right into his professional life.
He sold cars, right?
Yeah. As an adult, he worked for years at Alton Blakely and then transitioned over to Legacy Nissan in London. And he was famous in the local automotive scene for turning customers into close friends.
Which is hard to do in sales.
Very hard. But he wasn't just making sales. He was building genuine relationships. He gave what everyone in town called big ol' hugs, and he had this massive infectious laugh that would literally echo across the showroom floor.
The tragic irony here is just almost too much to bear.
It is.
Adam was universally loved. He's a guy who thrived on connection, on joy, on community. He was the complete antithesis of a covert operator or a spy.
Right. But in the completely broken, paranoid architecture of James Gleason's mind, this friendly guy who sold Nissans, played with his kids in the yard, and hugged his neighbors, he was viewed as a sadistic, high-tech torturer orchestrating a massive conspiracy.
And because of that broken mind, Danielle Roarke and her family were essentially living in a hostage situation on their own property.
They really were.
They were acutely aware that something was wrong across the street. Even if they didn't know the specific, weird sci-fi details of Gleason's delusion, they felt the hostility.
Danielle actually spoke about this dynamic later, and her perspective reveals the absolute terror of the situation. She noted that the problems with Gleason started years ago, long before the shooting ever happened.
The family was essentially living in a constant state of hypervigilance.
Her words are just devastating. She said, if the girls wanted to go for a walk or if our son wanted to leave, Adam would tell them James is across the street and you can't leave. Pause for a second and ask yourself, what will you do if you realize you cannot even let your kids walk down your own driveway because of the silent threat living directly across the street? If you're watching on YouTube right now, seriously, drop a comment. How do you handle a situation where your own front yard feels like a danger zone?
The driveway is supposed to be the safest place in the world for a kid.
Exactly. It's where you draw with chalk. It's where you learn to ride a bike without training wheels.
But for the Roarke family, it became a heavily monitored perimeter. It was essentially a suburban prison.
Yeah.
You work your whole life to buy a nice home on Dogwood Lane, a place with trees and supposedly friendly neighbors, and you end up trapped inside it because a man you barely know is mapping his psychotic breakdown directly onto your family.
The psychological terror of knowing someone is constantly watching you with hostile intent, but not knowing exactly what they are capable of is just unimaginable.
They were living with an unexploded bomb in the house across the street.
That is exactly what it was.
Yeah.
But that evidence alone is wild. But it really pales in comparison to what finally triggered that bomb to go off on that specific night in October.
Because it wasn't an argument, right? It wasn't a confrontation in the street.
Not at all. It all comes down to a freak combination of weather and a massive, catastrophic failure by the justice system.
I've read about environmental triggers in psychotic breaks before. Usually it's something like extreme heat waves, increasing agitation, leading to spikes in violent crime during the summer.
Right, the heat makes people angry.
Yeah. Are you saying the weather here wasn't causing general aggression, but was actually playing directly into his specific technological hallucination?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's look at the historical weather data from the Lake Cumberland Regional Airport for the night of October 8, 2025. It wasn't a sweltering summer night that makes people short-tempered and violent.
No, it was October.
Right. It was a cool night. The temperature was hovering in the low 50s. It was heavily overcast with 100% cloud cover. But the key detail documented by meteorologists that night was mist and unknown precipitation.
So how does a low 50s mist turn someone into a killer? I mean, if you are a normal person, you see mist and you just think, it's a damp autumn night. Grab a jacket.
You have to understand how individuals deep in the targeted individual subculture misinterpret normal environmental phenomena to fit their narrative.
Yeah.
They don't see weather. They see weapons.
Wait, they think the weather is a weapon.
Yes. Fog, thick humidity, and mist are routinely viewed by people in these forums as aerosolized delivery systems, or they call it a conductive medium for energy weapons.
That is insane.
On their forums, they literally discuss how government agents or gangstalkers pump heavy moisture into the air to make the microwave lasers more effective, or to carry chemical irritants across property lines.
The patternicity of a delusional mind is just terrifying.
Explain patternicity for the audience.
So, patternicity is the psychological tendency to find meaningful patterns in completely meaningless noise.
Like seeing faces in clouds.
Exactly. But when a brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, is hyperactivated, it assigns extreme life or death importance to things that should be completely ignored.
Right. So Gleason steps outside. He feels the dampness on his skin. He sees the static visual of mist swirling under the streetlights.
And his broken brain doesn't tell him it's just weather.
No, his brain tells him Adam is turning the machine on right now. The air is thick because the weapon is active.
The mist that night was likely the final visual trigger that completely shattered his fragile reality. He genuinely thought the heavy air was the physical manifestation of the torture he believed he'd been enduring for 5 years.
But an environmental trigger alone doesn't fire a weapon.
No, it doesn't.
How did a man completely detached from reality even get his hands on a loaded handgun, especially when he was legally barred from doing so?
Which brings us to the glaring, screaming red flag of this entire case. The Felon paradox. James Gleason wasn't just a guy with untreated mental health issues. He was a convicted felon.
Right.
At the time of his arrest for Adam's murder, he was also charged with possession of a handgun by a convicted felon. The system had already identified him as someone who absolutely should not have access to firearms.
Yet he had a loaded weapon and an entire magazine of ammunition ready to go.
So to understand how this happened, we have to uncover a massive systemic institutional failure. And we really have to contextualize it with Pulaski County's regional drug trade.
Because the background here is crucial. Public records and local reporting indicate that the Gleason name has been heavily associated with high-level drug trafficking in the area for a significant period of time.
We are specifically talking about networks involved in fentanyl and meth.
Methamphetamine. That specific drug detail fundamentally changes the entire psychological and forensic profile we're looking at.
It really does. We have to dissect the institutional blind spot happening here. The justice system has a long documented habit of treating drug offenders strictly as criminals.
Right, they lock them up, process the paperwork, and focus entirely on the penal aspect of the crime.
But what they completely ignore is the deep-seated, often permanent psychiatric rot that long-term drug use causes.
Especially meth. Methamphetamine is notorious for inducing long-lasting paranoid states that are virtually indistinguishable from organic schizophrenia.
The neurobiology of meth psychosis is absolutely devastating. Meth essentially floods the brain with dopamine, right? It massively overloads the D2 receptors.
And the brain striatum, which is the part that helps assign salience or importance to external stimuli, it just completely breaks down.
And when that happens, everything becomes dangerously important.
Everything. A car driving slowly past your house isn't just a lost driver looking for an address. It's an FBI surveillance team tracking you.
A neighbor stretching in their driveway isn't just stretching before a run, they are initiating a directed energy weapon attack.
And those meth-induced paranoid states almost always include severe themes of electronic surveillance, gangstalking, and the unshakable belief that neighbors are plotting against them.
The system failed at multiple levels here. They failed to see that a convicted felon with potential ties to a drug trade that destroys brain chemistry was sitting in a house, marinating in toxic internet conspiracy theories and just slowly escalating toward extreme violence.
We really have to pick apart Gleason's logic here, too, because he genuinely thought he was a hero in this scenario.
He really did. He thought he was striking a blow for targeted individuals everywhere by taking out his main tormentor.
But his fatal mistake, and really his pathetic narcissism, was refusing to question his own broken mind.
Yeah, he relied on internet echo chambers and substance-addled brain chemistry instead of just seeking basic psychiatric help.
He preferred the grand narrative where he was the star of a high-tech spy thriller over the sad, mundane reality that he was just a sick man who desperately needed medical intervention.
The system entirely missed the warning signs of that silent escalation. They left a paranoid, potentially meth-addled felon in a suburban neighborhood to fester.
We'll get to legal fallout in a second, but first, you have to hear how the courtroom proceedings forced the entire town to face this delusion.
The collision of a profound psychiatric delusion with the rigid structures of the legal system is always a slow-motion car crash.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, how did the courts even begin to process a guy who thinks he was shooting a microwave-wielding gangstalker?
Yeah.
You know his defense attorney is going to lean entirely into the delusion to avoid a standard murder conviction.
They absolutely did. The legal machinery starts moving almost immediately. On October 15th, 2025, which is exactly a week after the shooting, they hold the preliminary hearing.
And the judge quickly finds probable cause, right?
All right. They send the case to the Pulaski County grand jury. But it's the atmosphere in the courtroom that is truly heavy. Dozens of Adam's family members, friends, and former co-workers are packed into the gallery.
Just sitting there in silent, agonizing support.
Yeah. I can't even fathom the tension in that room. You're sitting mere feet away from the man who emptied a gun into your favorite cousin, your husband, your dad.
The restraint required by the Roarke family to sit through procedural legal motions while their universe is completely shattered is monumental.
And it only gets harder from there. We move forward to December 5, 2025. This is the official arraignment, and Gleason doesn't even appear in person in the courtroom.
Oh, he was remote.
Yeah, he's broadcast on a video monitor from the Pulaski County Detention Center. His attorney enters a standard not guilty plea, but then immediately requests a comprehensive mental health evaluation.
Ah, there it is.
Yep. They specifically cite schizophrenia as the underlying cause of his actions. The judge sets his bond at a staggering $1 million and schedules his next pretrial conference for March 5, 2026.
A mental health evaluation for schizophrenia. I mean, it is the most predictable legal maneuver in a case like this.
It's standard playbook.
The defense is clearly laying the groundwork for an insanity plea, or at least attempting to prove he is not competent to stand trial. But from the perspective of the victims, it must have felt like an absolute slap in the face.
Totally. It feels like the system is suddenly bending over backward to accommodate the delusions of a killer, while Adam Roarke gets absolutely no second chances.
It infuriated Danielle Roarke, and rightfully so. She gave a completely heartbreaking and fiercely logical response to this sudden schizophrenia claim.
What did she say?
She said, if there's something wrong with him, then his family should have requested and done something 5 years ago.
She cuts right through the legal maneuvering with just absolute common sense.
Exactly. Where was his support system when he was pacing his living room convinced of laser beams for half a decade?
Right, they let him fester.
They allowed him to exist in that echo chamber until he destroyed another family, and only now are they pulling the mental illness card to save him from the consequences.
And the timing of this arraignment is just brutal. It happened on December 5th. 5 days later, December 10th, would have been Adam and Danielle's wedding anniversary.
Oh.
Instead of celebrating, she stood before her community, navigating a high-profile murder trial. She said, "I have lost my person, so it means a lot to have the community standing behind us."
I know half of you driving right now are screaming at your podcast app, wondering why the legal system protects the privacy of a dangerous delusion until it's too late.
Why are there no interventions for people clearly broadcasting their descent into violent paranoia online?
I totally get it. The balance between civil liberties and public safety is incredibly frustrating when you see cases where all the red flags were waving in plain sight.
So if you're watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. How do you think the law should handle silent threats like this without infringing on people's rights before they actually commit a crime?
It is the ultimate terrifying question of modern society, and it leaves us with a chilling final thought to mull over today.
Think about the concept of the silent escalation. Because of the internet, people no longer have to stand on a street corner shouting their delusions to be heard.
Right, they can just sit in the dark.
Bathed in the blue light of a monitor, finding thousands of other people who will completely validate their most paranoid, dangerous thoughts.
How many people in our own neighborhoods, shielded by the privacy of their homes, their tall fences, and the depths of the internet, are currently fighting imaginary wars?
How many people are entirely convinced that the person mowing the lawn next door or the kid riding a bike down the driveway is their mortal enemy?
The scariest monsters aren't the ones hiding in the shadows. They are the ones standing plainly in the driveway, completely detached from reality, just waiting for a mist to roll in.
All right, if we made your drive, your workout, or your downtime even a little bit better today, do us a massive favor. Whether you are watching on YouTube, streaming on Spotify, listening on Apple Podcasts, or literally anywhere else, hit that follow or subscribe button right now. We drop episodes like this frequently, bringing you the most fascinating cases in the most interesting way possible. Lock in, because you do not want to miss the crazy mysteries we have queued up for next time. See you then.